Thank you for coming, for attending this Dharma talk. Thank you for all of your help in supporting this community, both by attending, by practicing, and by financially supporting us. We need your help. Please continue if you can.
The title of the talk is One Intention, very important. And so this is elaborated in Atisha's slogan here on training the mind. Go ahead and read that.
All activities should be done with one intention.
So all activity is done with one intention. This is a bodhisattva vow. This is a vow to liberate all beings, starting with just be kind to people. Even people that you don't particularly have affection for, resonate with, you could at least be courteous and be kind, be respectful to them. They're going through their pile of whatever in their life. Their things are falling apart here, maybe coming together, and then they thought that was going to work, and then it doesn't. And so they're dealing with that. You're dealing with something along that same line. We all have our own autobiography. Some people's life is working out totally perfect all the time, like Jisho. Ask Jisho. Life works out totally perfect. He's shaking his head no. So everyone has a different version of it, a different chemistry, or just a different way of handling negativity. And of course, we need to train our minds. We need to put ourselves first in some ways. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a body to even be kind to someone else. You wouldn't even be able to be present. Oh, here we are. And I'm using this word intention a lot because the powerful thing about intention is it doesn't reinforce the duality of our experience, the duality of the illusion of cause and effect. Do this, so that'll happen, or do this, so that'll happen. Although you could say to some extent that the Bodhisattva vow has an intention with an apparent result, which is, saved all beings. I tried to save all beings. Damn if it didn't work. So, and actually, there's something to that, silly as that sounds. What the realization is, if this shows up in the consciousness that is showing up as right now, as the illusion that you're a human being, that's not true. I don't care how solid, real, and how many times you pinch yourself. This is not real. The unreality of it is extremely vivid. It's so vivid that it's just the nightmares seem real and dreams seem real, and your everyday job situation where you've just got a promotion, or your relationship situation where someone just left you for someone else. This is extremely painful stuff. Not to mention the places in the world where that would be a luxury to have your wife leave you or something. No, what happens to you is you get killed, or you get your arm blown off. So it's the variability there is all over the place as far as other people who are suffering. It's horrible. But if you go back to the teaching of the Buddha, the first noble truth, he pulled no punches here. Life is suffering. He didn't say part-time. He said suffering, and everyone is going through their own version of that. There are a couple of these slogans in here who point out that you're going to be miserable. And you need to, my words, not the slogan, but need to receive whatever shows up, no matter how painful. If you add anything to it, if you blame someone, adding to it. If you blame yourself, adding to it. If you explain it, even if the explanation is correct, you've just left the spiritual path for the mundane path of fixing stuff, correcting things, and painting it blue instead of red, things that you can actually do. Not that you can't do that. It's just not the spiritual path. It may have aspects of it to it that are transcendent, or have an ultimate aspect or ultimate understanding. But it's so easy to get trapped in passion, aggression, ignorance, shutting down, chasing something away, grasping something, modifying it to suit yourself. Excuse me. And what makes it so difficult is it is about observing that, not about changing it or fixing it or stopping it. It's just has the ego in a cul-de-sac there. You can't get out of that. Spiritual path is deliberately puts the ego on the spot, and it's not comfortable because the ego wants to attain enlightenment too. and the ego, very nature of that illusion, it's impossible. That's why I say, and others have said too, if you attain realization, you won't know it, because that part of consciousness that knows things as something, or knows things as success or failure or other, is ego. That part of consciousness that just knows is not biased. It has no preferences. Well, I would, the consciousness only, prefer an oak tree to a rock on the ground. Doesn't prefer anything, but it does not miss the separation. It does not miss the contrast between things. That's why it's difficult, because consciousness is having the intention to see the truth and then noticing how all you see is a pack of lies. That's the path. Eventually, that pack of lies is seen through, and you see, and there's no guarantee. You see what this actually is. And what you eventually see is there isn't anyone to save. But you're not going to realize that deep here unless you really put others before yourself. Put the illusion of otherness before yourself. Because otherwise you're just building up your own case against the world and how you've been harmed. Or it's not that you haven't. You may have been treated very badly by others, but those others that are treating you badly are doing that to get away from their suffering. They may not have, probably don't have a spiritual path. But if they do, they're misunderstanding it. So that's in this book by Trungpa Rinpoche, that slogan, some of those slogans he'll go on for several pages. That one's fairly short. Why don't you read that one? It's a pretty concise pointer.
Slogan number 39, all activities should be done with one intention. The one intention is to have a sense of gentleness toward others and a willingness to be helpful to others, always. That seems to be the essence of the Bodhisattva vow. In whatever you do, sitting, walking, eating, drinking, even sleeping, you should always take the attitude of being of benefit to all sentient beings.
That's a hard one. Because all sentient beings are a pain in the ass, if you haven't noticed. Wouldn't you say? Difficult. It's very difficult, but what's being said here is just do it anyway. Use your sitting practice of clarifying the mind stream that is tied up in this and that, right and wrong, up and down, forth, back and forth, success and failure, positive thoughts, positive feelings, negative feelings. Just use that awareness of that to receive others right as they are, in the middle of their confusion. They may be very surprised to have someone actually receive them without comment, without giving them any advice, without meddling with them. Just receive them. Of course, there's always the chance they may be mistaken, that they may think that you like them. You don't want that to happen. So you might have to be really nice and then, I don't know, maybe offer them some cupcakes and then just pull the tray away and say, not that many. You've all done that, haven't you? Sorry, I can't come up with a more sophisticated example. That's a pretty good one, because it takes us right back to our childhood, where that kind of thing was very important between children. Who gets something, who's nice, who's not nice. You remember those days. Maybe you're still in them. Nice to see you, Constanza. So nice to see all the rest of you too. It's just that I haven't seen her in quite a long time. So I can take a few questions right now. If there are, I can continue to talk about intention. Yes.
Junshu bowing, how can the one intention of kindness show up in the midst of constantly trying to protect ourselves?
That's how it shows up. You include everything. You include trying to protect yourselves. You just step right through it, right into that. And you don't have to overdo it. You don't have to open your billfold or donate the next 3 or 4 weeks to taking care of somebody's children or their lawn or anything else. You don't have to do that. A little bit. You do it with your smile. Wouldn't you all agree? Not agree with me. You do. I mean, you already do that. We already know you're grouchy, but we can see that even when you're smiling. You thought that was covering things up. It's not. That's your extension. You don't get a credential for it. That's the best kind of friendliness. You're just friendly. You're just kind. You're just supported. You're not looking to. I was so nice to them, and they just don't appreciate how nice I am. That's a little bit turned around. If you get what I'm saying there. More.
Does the intention show up as an activity?
Not necessarily. Nothing might be happening. The intention could be just a receiving quality, but just listening to someone is pretty important. Depends on what's happening. I'm not going to do it now, but I can name several people who it would really be great if someone would listen to them more. Even though they won't offer it, but they could be asked, how are you doing? Tell me more. How does that feel? Are you doing anything about that? And if it's a practitioner with you, you say, how are you working with that in your practice? A lot of that happening where we don't really ask people and communicate with them. Not just this teaching person. And of course, that's part of what I do is to work with you in your practice if you come this way. If you don't, I'm not going to chase you down. But you could do that. You see what I'm saying a little bit? Do you ever want people to ask you how you're doing?
Maybe sometimes.
And there's other times when you want them to mind your own business. Yeah. So what do you want? There's a smile. That smile, since I met you many years ago, it's never had any agenda behind it. It's just a smile. Helps everybody.
Don't you bowing? If I'm stuck or caught in my own negativity or protecting myself
Yes.
and I forget entirely the intention to be kind.
Yes.
Is it still there? Is there
Yes.
some?
Yes. What you're describing to you might seem like negativity because of the way consciousness works in this person, what we call Junchu. But what I hear is awareness. You're the one, not that I'm not a bad guy too, but you're the one that's taking a position on it. Whatever arises, it has no characteristics as far as being a good thing or bad. It's just dependent origination. If you begin to see it, all the negativity comes and goes, the positivity comes and goes, but you just don't take it personally. You use the more culturally conventional recommendation. Don't take that person kind of thing. But it's actually you don't, isn't it? You don't need someone telling you that. You just realize that everything that happens is beyond personhood, because personhood is unreal. That's usually the first one that shows up. You start to see there's not a solid being here. Sometimes you get a clue of that and noticing how something is happening in consciousness that cannot be held onto or tracked down or solidified or fixated. It just constantly is shifting around, looking for a reference point, and it usually will settle for something negative.
How can that intention be there when I'm not even aware of it?
Excuse me, just return to it. Don't maintain anything. Just think of that. If that seems to be important to you, that slogan, write it down, put it somewhere where the intellect wants that kind of material. The ego wants that kind of material, except that kind of material is it's not supportive to the trip that the ego or the self-centered part of the consciousness is on, of me, and my stuff, my ideas, and how important I am, or so on and so forth. So it's just the intention. And as a practitioner, someone who meditates, I know you meditate regularly. And so just use that, just return to it, return to that intention. You can do it through the vow, and you received lay precepts, you received the Bodhisattva vow. You actually received a vow and are observing a vow in your life, and have been for several years, to put others before yourself. That's what the first of the three pure precepts, be with all things. That is also stated, save all beings. Anyone that's in front of you, do everything you can to help them, protect them. If they seem to be open to the Dharma, you can talk to them about the Dharma. If they don't advertise, don't promote anything. Just meet them in the particular crap that they're sitting in, if you can see it, and usually we can. And then just be supportive of that in any way they can possibly receive without a particular promotion. And then return to your own confusion and look at that. So what I'm trying to emphasize is you're aware of the way that your mind is working. But what's going alongside of that is the self-centered part of the mind, the ego mind, that is judging and feeling that something is failing or you're not getting it right. No, you're getting it exactly right. This is what the Buddha saw, my friends. The Buddha did not see a shining castle on a hill. The Buddha saw crap. The Buddha saw suffering. The Buddha saw confusion. The Buddha saw passion, aggression, ignorance, hope and fear, pride and envy, and everything else you can name. He saw that, but he saw it so clearly and so completely that in a relative way that it just came apart. And what showed up was what he was looking at was awakening. So his awakening was about the confusion, not other than the confusion. It was the confusion, not two. Nothing is separate anywhere, nor is it together. More? John.
It seemed like the statement that there's only one intention. It seems like there's also like a laundry list of intentions.
Yes.
And so how do you square that circle?
There's nothing to square. There's nothing to do. They just return to that intention. And the other intentions will clamor or do whatever they want to do too, but return to that one. You received Jukai also. You actually, and I took you seriously. You said you wanted this. I think I pushed back on you a little bit. Are you sure you want to do this? You know, you're a grown man. I trusted that what you wanted to do this. So I gave you those precepts. The thousands of years old. It's a long lineage of people who are trying to understand what is the nature of consciousness. What does it mean to be a human being? Not just Buddhism, that's a name. And how each teacher or each teaching show how this shows up in each situation is a little bit different. So I would say all you have to do is return to that intention. Be with all things. Whatever shows up, whether it's a multitude of intentions. I need to do this. I need to get that done. You know, you're very busy right now with this and that, the other thing, pulling you all different kinds of directions, and they're all in different levels of life, your job, your personal life, your personal health, and all of that. So I know what you're talking about. I would say return to that intention to be with all things. Whatever shows up, just be with that. Don't correct it. Don't fix it. It's a very, very delicate area. And without a lot of sitting meditation, you are unlikely to see it with your consciousness or your awareness, because there will be so much thinking and judgment and opinion and so on in front of it. So that's why we sit, so that we can slowly bring that awareness, just as a way of talking about it. This doesn't even happen. It's a way of talking about it, bringing that awareness to the fore, so the awareness is in the driver's seat, so to speak, instead of thoughts of right and wrong, should be, shouldn't be, and operating out of hope and fear and paranoia. So get that awareness out there. Sit a lot. Further?
Yeah, Sean Jamberling. But it also seems like even with inside the teachings, there's multiple intentions that we're working with as well.
Name one.
I'm trying to come up with one.
That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
I want to hear them. I only see one. Save all beings. Remember that one. But you can, if you want to. I didn't ask you to shut you down. So if you have a 5 or 10 you want to share with me, I'd like to look at them.
I mean, perhaps someone else could help me here.
No. Don't you dare help him. I mean, smile at him, but that's it. Well, think about it a little bit. Well, you can come up. So, choke it out.
Chokodaba, I want to know how to work with the idea of saving all beings without going into martyrdom and idiot compassion.
So you won't be able to help but go into that. So, but that's because we have to, instead of running away from the structures of the ego, like martyrdom, idiot compassion, or something like that, we have to actually go into those and not and actually allow ourselves to be that, because you won't be able to see it clearly if you resist it, because you've not actually looked at it. So I could say it this way: I say risk idiot compassion and risk the feeling of martyrdom, and just put others before yourself. Put everyone before yourself. It has to be done on this path which you're on. You also receive the precepts, so just do that, and those will come in and try to draw you away from it, using any kind of construct in the thinking process, in fifth or fourth skandha, thinking that will get really strong and start to talk to the other skandhas, the feeling perception skandha, and the body. You'll feel it in it. Some people intensely feel things in their body. Others don't. Others even think they didn't have a body, or they would think they didn't have a body, because everything shows up in thinking, or everything shows up in feeling. More, please.
Chokodaba, I think Trungpa Rinpoche talked about taking the bodhisattva, or receiving the bodhisattva vow, and you might have to marry someone. And you and I have talked about relationship difficulties
Extensively.
So just to be petty about it, I could feel like I wasted 15 years of my life because
We have that in common.
Right. That's why I bring it up.
Yeah,
It's
it's a really good topic.
I can also like dance around that and say, well, I learned so much and all that, but it sucks. That feeling sucks.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. I'm reflecting on I don't like to get too personal with what's happening over here, what has happened, but all of my marriages have been teachings for me. I don't mean that they were all gurus or they're all Buddhas, although nothing is separate from the Buddha. But until I was able to look at my relationships as a teaching, I really, really struggled with them. I didn't stop struggling, but the struggling always had some kind of underlayment of I really need to train my mind, and I can, by working with this particular person that I was married to, say in the 1970s or the 1980s, that I may still fight with them, might still have disagreements, but if I just try to have an attitude that I can work with them in some way, try to stay as positive as I could, to use that fancy word, positive. This is very difficult. Go ahead.
Chokodaba, in that same vein, I think you and I have both been in relationships where our practice was basically shut down by our partner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's scary.
Yeah, yours is 12 years, mine was 16 years. So it wasn't shut down completely, but it was highly modified. If you're in a relationship with somebody who has a great deal of personal power, and I don't care how strong your intention, your bodhisattva intention is, you are brought into that through karma. I'm not saying that you are taking away your ability to make choices or go this way or go that way, but some of that material, just you need to go through it. Some people need to go through a tunnel. Some people need to go over a mountain. Some people need to go down into the river, and you will not have a choice. You don't really have a choice what you eat for breakfast. It just looks like you do. Go ahead. That's it. Okay. I'm glad we get that solved. So, yeah, I'm happy to respond to any questions in that area. Thank you for asking about that, because it's whatever. That's my way of talking about that is if it shows up in your mind, if it shows up at the kitchen table, if it shows up in your relationship. I mean this. This is the only way I can think of to say it. You got it coming. I don't mean you personally. I'm saying the karma that gives you this hair color, the karma that the karma that is causing you to be born male, female, or a particular orientation sexually, or anything, or your height, or any of the relative things, including the structure of your mind stream and your propensity to run this way with problems or that way, or your ability to think very abstractly, or your tendency to be completely swamped by emotions and so on. Just you don't have any choice about that. Go look in the mirror. I often say, go look in the mirror and say, how did this, not this guy, but how did you get here? And who decided how to do this? Make these ears, this skin color, this, everything here, this tone of voice. This is choiceless. There's no solid, separate personhood here. This is an illusion. I cannot emphasize that enough. And the only way, I'm not saying there might be dozens of other ways, but the only way that I know of, based on what I received from my teachers, is you need to look at it yourself. And the only way I know of to do that is to sit and look at something, eyes open, that is not moving, and watch what continues to move in the mind stream without joining it, without objecting to it, and without ignoring it, and eventually realize what your true identity is, because it's not a separate being. Yes, sir.
Sokuzan, how do we work with, I'm finding out now that some of the things that occurred could be called emotional abuse. So that's like a therapy term.
It is.
And I wasn't aware of these things till recently. And so I'm guessing you've had some similar experiences.
Yes, certainly have.
So there's a therapy way of looking at that,
Yeah.
which I think is helpful. But how is the Dharma view of that?
Just receive it. And this is what I did all through most of the 90s. I'll go a little bit further with the personal part. I married somebody, it's my fourth wife. Yes, I have that kind of karma. My fourth wife, and who I did not love. I liked, but I could not do anything but be with her. I was choiceless for me. And I've been practicing the Dharma when I met her for about 17 years, intensely. Been many, many retreats, long ones, practiced a lot. And I'd already met of course I'd met Trungpa, but he had passed away. I'd met Kobun, but I still was having difficulty with Kobun as my teacher. It was very difficult. So I was married to that person who has not passed away. Bless her heart. She was a wonderful person. She was very kind and supportive and loving and so on. But you know her. So you got one sentence for her?
Sokuzan, she made me cry in a restaurant.
Well, that's powerful. She was great. But her particular power she was very powerful. And she actually tried to practice the Dharma. She came into this because of the Dharma, I feel, and she actually went to seminary. She did everything she could, but once she got out of seminary, she stopped practicing. She never did a single prostration that I know of. She just stopped. She just turned back into her hobby, which is buying junk in junk stores and selling antiques, and did that. And my situation, I had to help her do that. It was choiceless for me. I had to help her do that. So I just worked at a job so that she could have health insurance. This is what Eric Chokodawa is referring to. We've known each other for 24 years, something like that. So it's difficult. But there's nothing to correct there. And there's nothing, I'm not saying you couldn't use therapy ways. Some people might need to use those kinds of things to work with that. And I think that can be valuable to do that. But I really never saw a therapist. I did it with the Dharma. If I've done anything at all, that's why I can sit here. So I'm sitting here and while you're sitting here. You're not sitting here because I'm promising you something or you're getting some kind of accolades from me necessarily. I'm just saying, if you want to train your mind, I might be able to tell you how to do that. If you don't, then as you heard me say, I sometimes even chase people away. Go do something else. You don't have to be here. I don't require anything. I don't need anything at all. And that kind of understanding began to arise out of the relationships that I was in. Not just that one, but the previous several relationships that I was in, very close ones. Relationship is very important. Trungpa Rinpoche once said, the best relationship is no relationship. And all that means, it doesn't mean there isn't a relationship there. It means that if you use that, what's happening in that relationship to reinforce the passion, aggression, and ignorance that is happening in your own mind, then you're trapped by what? Illusion, the illusion of other. There is no other. That person that's arising, just like my relationship, that person was me. That was my mind arising as another person. And this, you're looking at this person, this is your mind arising as a Dharma teacher. Listen to me. Listen to me. I only have one thing to say. Train your mind. Don't live another day without finding out who this is. Don't run around getting your identity from soap commercials or other people or the neighbors or your mom or your relationship. Don't get your identity from anywhere, but just from your consciousness. And that will feel, at least initially, quite lonely. But when you see what this is, there's no loneliness because there isn't anyone left. There's no singularity left. Everywhere you look, you don't see anything but yourself. But I don't mean yourself as an identity. I'm seeing consciousness only. You're just you've actually transcended the grip of ego, and you're living in an open dimension that even your own death can't interfere with it. So powerful. I highly recommend it, and I don't guarantee anything. Yes.
Shinbang. Sometimes my intention seems to be a natural part of my life, and at some other situations it seems to be dormant. What awakes a dormant intention?
Just finding a way to insist on returning to that. Sometimes I might tell somebody to write it on a card and put it on the refrigerator. I vow to be with all things. Write one of the vows that you've received. Write it somewhere. I vow to, so that you're seeing that in words. That is a way. Another way is some people use more intensive practices like the sevenfold Mahayana Puja. Several people are doing different forms of that. I teach that in a particular way, but I don't do it as to everyone as a class. So you'll find a way. Just returning to your altar. Altar is just a table. You might have a candle on it or incense. Well, yours wouldn't have incense on it, but a Dharma book or something, or an image of the Buddha, image of the teacher. And you would come and just, it's not like you're worshiping something. You're just paying respect to your own enlightened nature. We need something. You could say, we are trapped in a relative structure. That is, if you see what it is, it's the walls or the prison quality just drops away because you're not separate from anything. You can't be imprisoned by something you're not separate from. But if you don't see what it is, then your hopes and your fear and everything will keep you into that separate person of me, and my life, my personhood, the same situation that I was working with in my relationship, and Sokuzan was mentioned about his relationship stuff, and and I'm saying it's a teaching, and that's what I'm saying to Sokuzan. He already knows that. It's just a teaching. The person that you were with is suffering greatly. You know that? Yes.
If that dormant intention happens in the relationship with a specific person, shall I be more specific in that?
A little louder, please.
If the dormant intention happens in relation to a specific person.
Let's go back to dormant relationship. Didn't you say that?
I'm just asking if your suggestion about writing down
Okay.
should include that.
What do you want to know?
situation.
Ask me what you want to know.
Should I be more specific in writing down?
Yes.
the intention then?
Yes, specific. Keep it simple. Less than a sentence. It's called a phrase, isn't it? Any English majors here? I have several smiles, 2 frowns, 3 neutrals. I need all the feedback I can get. Go ahead.
Would establishing that not be a mantra, like a couple simple phrases? Would that just?
You could use that. Be with all things. Don't do anything unless you have to. Be with all things is traditional. Don't do anything unless you have to is probably traditional, but it's something I say. Just don't, if you're doing something you don't have to do, probably need to, it's probably some kind of a cover up for something you may want to look at more closely. Any kind of activity that doesn't have to be done is. Yes.
Ondabine, what is the difference between the intention to save all beings and all the relative intentions we have of being a good father or mother or being a good partner?
So I think somewhat that's what Shantian is talking about. Isn't that true? Somewhat, but well, that's the primary one. And especially in your situation, you're a fully ordained Buddhist monk. You live in a monastery, so your only intention is that, and everything else will. It's like that's the intention. Everything else isn't excluded. It's like you're pushing it away, and it will get on board with that as the situation arises. You might find that you're totally working in another area for 30 minutes or 3 days or something, just because the situation's taking you there. Just like as being the executive director of this organization, that's going to take you in directions that may not seem like you're in that intention at all, but maybe in a bigger picture, you could say that you are. More? Did I miss what you're looking for?
Ondabine, I was just looking for, like for you, for all of us, we're already Buddha, you say, and there is no separation in Buddha mind. What is the difference between having an intention that is, it seems like it's pulling us way beyond ourselves versus pulling us into the relative world? It seems like there's tension there.
Okay. What do you want to know?
Do our relative intentions pull us away from the Bodhisattva vow?
It may look that way, and that's one of the reasons that we, some people, not all, but some people become fully ordained monks, and some people just receive lay precepts. Some people don't receive any, and I say there's no right or wrong way to do any of this. You know what you need to do. You know how much glue you need, because the world is clamoring at you and pulling. Your family pulls you this way. You know that. Pulls you this way, pulls you that way. And if you just continue to do whatever your mom wanted you to do, you certainly wouldn't be a monk. You'd still be Roman Catholic, wouldn't you? So she does not approve of this. But when you go to her to visit her, if you don't mind me saying something personal about you, you go along. She says prayers in the traditional way. You say them with her. So you're meeting her in that area. You're with her. You're not totally on board with what she's doing, but she doesn't even know what she's doing, more than likely. Not to pick on your mom, but you see what I'm saying? So you're able to return to your vow, return to the monastery, return to your way of doing. Reinforcing that has to do with your practices and your the various kinds of puja that you do. Everyone does a little bit different here. More? Did I miss what you were asking about?
Ondabine, I'm still trying to get to the kind of the quality of receiving that happens. And I'm not able to come up with a question.
The quality of receiving.
With the intention to save all beings. And then our immersion into all the relative intentions that we have. It seems like we can bring that receiving, if we practice enough, into our relative, like you were saying before, with the relationships, to treat those relationships as a teacher.
Can do that.
I've already lost my train of thought.
There was a train involved.
Yes, there was.
Hmm.
Um,
Want to come back to it? Anyone on Zoom have a question? Okay. Go ahead, Caillou.
Earlier when you were commenting on the Lojong slogan and talking about not correcting anything,
Yes.
it seems basically every Tibetan teacher that's making an impression in the West now is framing their teachings as some way of fixing. So how do we not exclude that approach without, or how do we include that approach, Melanie?
Well, I know what you're talking about, and there is, if you read Atisha 7 Points of Mind Training, a lot of it is about fixing or changing. So I'm very selective if I use those slogans. I think they're very valuable. But all 59, I wouldn't just say that all 59 of them are workable. From the way I look at it, I don't teach out of what I was taught, but I certainly don't ignore what I was taught. But I teach out of what I'm looking at. I know whether a slogan shows up. I know whether I should use this slogan and say, yes, you should do this slogan this way. Because I'm looking at it. I'm looking at the very illusion that I'm endeavoring to encouraging you to see, not only in your mind, but in your world, in those tables, in these robes, in this wall, in these wall hangings, in the sound of this voice, in the gestures, my hand moving back and forth and then going to my chin. Illusion, it's not real. It's there, it's vivid, and it's powerful, but it's untrue. It's not true. It's relatively true. And through this practice, as has been taught for thousands of years, you can actually be in this illusion and be moving this way, be going to get groceries, be trying to accommodate someone, smiling at someone, and realize your true nature, that you are, as it says in another one of the slogans that I like, in the Absolute Bodhisattva, I don't remember the number of it, it's in post-meditation, or after you get off the cushion, remain a child of illusion. This is one of Atisha's. Powerful. Just this is an illusion. You're a child. You don't know what this is. And the relative knowledge is helpful if you're looking for the difference between salt and pepper. You need to know that, but that comes up situationally. But to load yourself with too much relativity so that the ego mind feels safe, you have opinions and ideas. Those are the chemicals of the mind. And then in your world, there's having activities, doing this, doing that, everything planned out. So you know how you're going to do it, getting a job where you have to do everything a certain way and live up to certain. You can spend your whole life just following the rules, living up to standards. If you come into this monastery, there are standards, and you don't have to obey them. You have to observe them. Big difference, and I'm happy to respond to 100 questions around that. It's very difficult to see what's the difference between observing a rule or a law or standard and obeying it. When you observe it, you may fall in line with it, you may not, but because then you are beginning to trust your own mind. You're respecting your own confusion. Very important. More about that, Kayun.
Kayun bowing. I guess what I'm seeing is my own aversion come up to that style of teaching and thinking that it's wrong. And I guess just receiving that as best.
So you're saying that the Tibetans are right and Sokuzan's wrong?
I was looking for the right opportunity to finally say it.
Yes, finally, he nailed me.
Well, the opposite, the opposite.
But you can see, going along that same line, you can see how some of those directions are pretty valuable. Some of those slogans are quite helpful. Of the two, keep the principal witnesses are really valuable. Of the two, yourself and someone else, and including your teacher, of the two, keep the principal with it. Your insight is the one we really need to recognize. Don't just obey the teacher, even though some Tibetans do that. Some Tibetan teachers say, whatever the teacher says, that I will do. I don't think that's appropriate. Maybe it was in medieval Tibet or in medieval Japan. Maybe obeying the guru or the teacher was appropriate. Not now. Don't obey anybody. But consider, listen. Why wouldn't you at least consider what anyone is saying? At least if you're in this room and on this screen, consider what this teacher is saying. You consider it. See if that test it for yourself. See if that's workable for you. If it's not, please do something else. But make sure that looking at it is a deep concern about the nature of what arises in consciousness. Further, Diane?
Kayan bowing, that's helpful because I think of somebody like Mingyur Rinpoche, who's just like a lovely, jolly person, but who talks quite a lot about joy. And I feel that a lot of people I know who are his students tend to like get a little caught up in feeling good all the time. But then I also heard him say you need to train to feel sad without being sad. And I thought, well, that actually makes little sense. So I guess maybe is it that the teacher is trying to meet their students where they are, and a lot of the Western students need to hear something like that? I don't know.
So my way of talking about it is maybe not in that aligned to Mingyur Rinpoche, but when I say that Trungpa Rinpoche says that happy and sad or pain and pleasure are not separate from each other, nor are they the same thing. So it's a very difficult thing to, if you're experiencing pain, you just have the pain. If you have pleasure, you just have the pleasure. Relative truth tends to be very, very polarized that way. But the ultimate understanding in consciousness is that the picking and choosing just comes apart, and we just see that those are just aspects of consciousness, just like pride and shame, not separate from each other. You can't have pride without shame. You can't have shame without pride. Both of them are grasping at an aspect of relative truth that is but relatively true, ultimately not true. And this is an ultimate path. This is a spiritual path of transcending the grip of passion, aggression, ignorance, the grip of samsara on us. Because if you don't, before this body goes back into the elements and your consciousness is no longer has a physical form, if you don't see what this is, then there's a likelihood, I'm not saying I know for sure, but the way it looks to me, that it looks like the consciousness will go back in and find another form, come back, another embryo, come back, maybe not even a human, and come back into consciousness again. Don't believe a word I'm saying, but consider it. You could consider that. That's how it's looking over here, and I've been looking for a while. You have a question?
Yoke bowing questions from YouTube.
YouTube?
Ath Alm
Ask.
in the UK. What's the difference between active and passive distractions?
Active and passive distraction. Let's see. I'm not sure what you want to know, but I it feels kind of silly to say it because you know what it is.
Yoke bowing, there's a second part, maybe
Good.
this will help. Would the desire to maintain, I guess he's talking about distraction, is that in itself a form of distraction or pushing away?
Yes. So to differentiate between those, I think you can probably figure that out for yourself, what those are.
Bowing. Question from Andrew in the UK.
Okay.
If we are producing to another and receiving, when they respond, are we receiving ourselves? Bowing.
Well, somewhat, we're always receiving our projection. We project and and something comes back, and then what comes back is probably our projection of what's coming back rather than what's actually coming back. But it's not about stopping that. It's about being aware of that. If you're aware that that ping pong is going on, you don't have to do anything with it, because awareness isn't doing anything. But the awareness that is stuck to or is velcroed to the activity of cause and effect and right and wrong, or going this way, going that way, then that's what's called narcissism or ego or hope and fear, bottled up in a construct that is operating out of success and failure and all the other polarities. But you can actually experience all of that. You can experience negative emotions without rejecting them, without agreeing with them, without believing them, just feeling them. Just feel. Go ahead.
That bowing. When we sit and face the wall, we seem to be working towards being the observer and noticing what's going on. Is that a stepping stone to enlightenment, or is that a glimpse of enlightenment?
Or is it what?
A glimpse.
So we aren't working towards being an observer so much. So that would be more identity stuff.
Okay.
So that's why I don't particularly emphasize more forms of meditation that create a meditative observer person. So just observing, that's why I say whatever shows up, just look at it. Don't conclude. I mean, if it's a daydream for all day. The next day you might not daydream at all. But if you do anything, you fuss around with it and try to create some kind of structure and consciousness based on your idea of what awareness is or what consciousness is or what enlightenment is, then you've just created your own track. This is called spiritual materialism, the cover of the book that we study together. So very good question. More about it? Okay. Did I respond in a way that's helpful?
Yes.
I hope so.
Sanji bowing.
Go ahead, Sanji.
Is this intention connected to compassion?
Yes.
Is it a development of compassion?
I don't know if I'd use that word. Intention is just intention. You just intend to, it can run in a lot of ways, intend to see the truth, intend to save all beings. So there's see the truth is the wisdom part, and save all beings is the compassion part. And those are not two separate things. They just look that way. One looks like it's moving, compassion, and one looks like it is sitting still, wisdom. It is a way of talking. We are kind of trapped by the relative constructs, language. And so unless you're Vasubandhu, it doesn't seem to be trapped by anything. I highly recommend that, especially those of you who feel like you want to have a definite explanation of what you're trying to look at. That's the teacher I would send you to. Vasubandhu's 30 verses. Study it, read it. You don't have to read it 2 or 3 times, but maybe 400 or 500. Slowly. Have I done that? No. Not going to either. But I would have liked to have run into those verses in all the translations back in the 70s. That would have been very helpful for me to go into that. But all I did was read whatever Trungpa Rinpoche said for a couple decades. Very good. So I think we can close. What do you think? What do you think? Okay. Seth, what do you think? No? Don't close? Okay. You know.
Hi, this is Jiezan, the prior at SokukoJi Buddhist Monastery. Sokuzan offers these talks without expecting anything in return. If you value these talks and would like them to continue, please visit our donate page at www.sokukoji.org. Thank you.